Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Babblebox Like Love Share podcast. I am so excited to be speaking with Chelsea McDonald. Hi, Chelsea. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sherry. It's great to see you.
Tell us a little bit more because I find it just so fascinating. You're independent, you do all this social and influencer media marketing management as an independent consultant. And I think that this is a career path that is just so inspiring for so many people. So tell us a little bit more about you and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a director level social and influencer strategist. I have about 13 years of experience working on both the agency and client side of things. So I started out at an agency for the first 8 years of my career, and we didn't have any specialities in terms of like industry, but we were a more digital focused or digital forward agency. And I worked across everything: finance, beauty, CPG. I'm blanking, but everything you can think of, renewable energy, even. I've worked on portfolio brands like Hyatt Hotels Corporation and Sanofi. I've also worked on clients like Hulu and SunPower and Hallmark. So it's a little bit all over the board on the first 8 years of that career, but I really had to learn to do everything. When I started, we were iframing Facebook tabs, into the platform because we were still predominantly using Facebook on desktop, and that is completely gone. So the industry has evolved a lot in the time that I've been here, and I was excited to go to the client side of things as well, where I worked at Groupon leading social media for over 4 million followers. So just learned a lot more about, working in cross-functional teams and how things kind of operate from the back end of things, essentially. So yeah, it's a little all over the place, but if you've seen it in social media, I've probably done it.
That's amazing. And I know it's shifted a lot. It's interesting that you worked across so many different categories. And I know from our experience together, PC is a
Mhm.
fun and cool and vibrant and colorful brand. It's the ice pops and drinks. And then you have Selsun Blue, which is, regulated and owned by a pharma company, even though it's shampoo. How do you, with influencers, juggle go from those 2 types of activations? Like, how do you begin and how do you juggle it?
Yeah, well, I mean, when we're starting out, the first thing to think of really, our strategy is what's encompassing what we're trying to do and the plan to do it. So there's a lot of factors that you have to take into consideration with each program, whether it's timing or geolocation, the objective, the KPIs, so on and so forth. So then you're really just trying to find the best possible creators that can accomplish that. And what I found is that those who can convey your brand's message seamlessly into the types of content that they're already great at, the content that built them, their following, those are the best to partner with. And sometimes that can be industry agnostic. You could potentially work with the same creator for a more regulated brand and one that has more creative freedom. It doesn't necessarily eliminate one or the other, but if we feel strongly that the content that they've produced in the past and the messages that they've tried to convey would align well with our brand, then it's fair game.
And then when you talk about, these types of campaigns, let's talk about the numbers. Do you see, what size of influencer do you think makes the most sense? I know it's always different, but if there's any insight there and the sheer volume, because I know with Selsun, it was a lot of influencers, like 200. So
Yeah.
where do you see the sweet spot there?
Again, it really depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish and what your budget is as well. Unfortunately, the influencer space really lacks a lot of transparency across the board in terms of how much influencers and creators are charging for what specific outputs. And that has just kind of happened organically because influencer sits at that intersection of paid, owned, and earned. Their content primarily lives in social. I typically think it makes the most sense when an influencer practice does fall into social, but at the same time, we're talking about a media spend at the end of the day. We're still engaging someone for a certain amount of money to get something in return. So, um, in terms of the types of creators or the number, I don't think that there's a straightforward answer. I think that if you're really just looking for pure awareness numbers and impressions, like sure, working with some of those bigger influencers that have larger followings could be a more simple way to get there. But I am always cautious not to forget about like the little guys or the underdogs and those like nano and micro influencers, because while their followings are typically significantly less, even, you could consider somebody with 1,000 followers to be an influencer. And in that range of, 1 to 10,000 or 15 to 25,000, likely those audience are a lot more highly engaged with their influencer than somebody who has millions of followers, just because of the state the algorithms are in at this phase, right? There's so much content being inundated on people. There has to be space in your feed for who you're following, for ads, and these partnerships as well. So fighting for that space, the bigger numbers of followers are no guarantee that you're going to get that. Nothing's a guarantee in social, but I definitely don't forget about those smaller creators, especially when we're looking at more valuable metrics like shares and saves.
Those are my 2 favorite numbers, shares and saves, everyone.
Yeah.
But I do think the other big value is, A, engagement, but B, if you work with more smaller ones, you're able to afford more, so you're able to reach different
Hmm.
types of audiences or get more pieces of content. I think there's a lot
Right.
of value there too.
Yeah, and with Salsa, we were looking to get a high volume of content, and we were also looking for extended usage rights as well. What I think some people, or at least, on the brand side who maybe haven't done this very often or are new to the space, like, the amount of usage rights that you get with the content that the creators and the influencers produce for you is typically about 3 months. Wouldn't you say that by standard, Sherry? Yeah. So if you have a client that's looking to either extend those usage rights into other channels so that they can use those images and videos on the website or in email, those could be additional charges. Or if you're looking for those rights to be extended to 1 or 2 years or even in perpetuity, which is what we were doing with Selsun, those fees can get a lot higher. So you're now working within the same budget constraints to get less content to have for a longer amount of time. So we really went with or focused on that smaller cadence of influencers because we were trying to get a high volume number of content with a long usage rights of in perpetuity.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. You obviously have experience working in pharma. I know it freaks people out. Tell us about some of the regulations. Like, what are some of the things, the constraints, the regulations? I know them, but you obviously work much more closely. So let us know what some of those issues are when it comes to working in pharma.
Yeah, so understandably, these brands just have a lot more red tape that they have to work within. And I want to give creators as much control as possible over the content so that it is really authentic to them and the audience that they've built. Many of the hurdles that we saw were really a result of the brand not having ever done an influencer campaign before. So they just didn't know what they didn't know. We developed a thorough brief, full of do's and don'ts. And as the content began pouring in, the brands were suddenly realizing that there were things that they hadn't accounted for, such as specific phrasing, or even when like an on-screen disclaimer such as use as directed had to be present. So in the case of Selsun, anytime the product was in use, so pouring out of the bottle into your hand, lathering it or putting it in your hair or rinsing it out, all of those scenes had to have that
Disclaimer.
disclaimer on screens. That wasn't something they had really thought about in the social space, or just you don't think about it until it's happening, especially when you're trying to work on a timeline that is limited to 2 rounds of revisions. Something unforeseen like that can, really kind of throw a wrench into the gears and can also cause delays because you're trying to communicate it as feedback for those that already exist, as well as try to get ahead of it while everyone else is still producing their content.
Yeah. No, and I think it's a good point. I think pharma was or is later to the influencer game. So the fact that they don't know this, you
Mhm.
know, they're just catching up. So is there from Selson, because it was a lot of content, was there something from that whole, library of content that someone did that just jumped out at you, that you were like, this was amazing, or this is just why influencer works?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there was one specific execution, but I think the best approach that was taken was just putting the product within the context at which it naturally lives, right? So, more than half of the creators for that campaign focused on showing the product either during or after use. So, from a bottle in hand in the shower to pouring into your hand, lathering into your hair, rinsing out, or even those who showed like the before and after kind of close ups of their scalps. I think that's definitely the best approach that you can take, especially for not only a regulated brand, but a brand like Selsun, where we're really trying to communicate not only the new formulation, but also the money back guarantee that the brand has always offered, but never centered in messaging.
which I had never seen before, which is amazing.
Yeah, the entire profile of Sanofi brands actually has that guarantee. So it was with the launch of the new formulation, it was just a great opportunity to communicate those two side by side.
Yeah. We just had a meeting with another nonprofit, and I had never known that they have this program where you could round up, and that's where they get most of their money, like the round up when you're
Uh
out of
huh.
school. Like, no one knows about this. Like, we were all singing, yeah. So it's those
Yeah.
little things that become obvious when you're in house that when you have external people, they see it.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Absolutely.
shift to the fun and the vibrant, not that Selsun isn't, but let's talk icy because that was just so much fun. How do you shift? Tell us about icy. Tell us what the need is for a brand that kind of is nostalgic, colorful, pop. You tell us.
Yeah, it's so much fun working on Icy. For those who don't know, their mascot is a polar bear, and polar bears are my favorite animal.
Oh
So it was
wow.
like an especially like fun thing to not only like work on a brand that I experienced in childhood and has a very strong nostalgia to it, but also had that connection as well. But really, the way we set out to do the campaign with Icy was just to show the brand synonymously with like summer fun and activities. And that really allowed us to tap into that nostalgia that parents have with the brand while also creating the opportunity for them to share it and pass it down with their own kids. And I think it's important to note for Icy, just to clarify as well, that we have two components of this business that we did influencers with. And so the first is, the iconic delicious, like frozen coldest drink in town. And then we also have the frozen novelties that come in like freeze pops and tubes. So we set out really to create that association between going to an amusement park and grabbing an icy beverage, or taking the icy frozen novelties in the cooler to the lake, grabbing ices at the gas station on your family, road trip.
Oh, and let me ask you a question. That is trade, right? That's not consumer. Am I right? Is that trade marketing or I could be wrong?
I guess I don't understand what you mean by trade marketing in that sense.
Is that like the movie theater where it's the partner?
Yes and no, that we had that component to
Okay.
the campaign, but in terms of setting the intention and objectives, like, of the campaign as a whole, we were not at that level to where we were looking for specific places for it to show up on the beverage side especially. When it comes to the novelty side, it was more general messaging where we would say, check your local grocery store or go to this website to find them near you. We weren't dedicated to one retailer specifically. Of course, they were still allowed to say retailer if that's where they, film their content, or that's where they went to find them. Because the stores that carry them are the stores that carry them, right? When it comes to the beverage side of things and these early phases, again, we were just looking for that association between the drink itself and summer activities. So an amusement park, the lake, the beach, all these places can
Backyard.
be evergreen, right? Like they don't have to be branded. So that's kind of what we were setting out to do from the get, was really just finding those family fun moments that are already happening this time of year and finding ways to seamlessly insert or complement that with Icy.
I know that obviously you've grown up in this space and you're the ultimate expert. Where do you see it going? Like, what do you think is next? What do you think is big for 2026? Would love your insights if you have any there.
Yeah, I think that influencer marketing broadly has completely exploded, right? It's become this like almost essential, if not required, part of nearly every campaign, but there's still a lot of things about it that are misunderstood, or I think, brands are still just like getting wrong. And I would say that that has led to a lot of loss of authenticity, which is what made influencer marketing great to begin with, right? Like UGC marketing in general, which also includes, like reviews and website testimonials, like that has long been the best form of referral because it's essentially hearing it from another real person or hearing it from somebody that you know and trust, which is what a lot of people have come to find influencers as the people that they're following because they trust what they say and the recommendations that they give, that they're not just somebody looking to cash a paycheck for any brand opportunity that comes their way. So I think that the authenticity is getting lost because of the volume at which we're now seeing influencer partnerships. So, in 2026, I think there's going to be a rise in what we'll just call like event marketing, but as it kind of goes like hand in hand with influencer and not just creating events or experiences or spaces for influencers only, but also having the opportunity to open that up to brand loyalists and advocates as well. These people who don't necessarily have these large followings or not approaching social media in the way that an influencer creator does, but are the ones who are seeing influencers they follow receive these like amazing PR packages or like these free gifts and these free opportunities. And ironically, those are probably the people who need that the least, right? Like they get so much stuff for free already and they're making great money, so they can obviously afford it. So I think just not forgetting about the ultimate consumer at the end of the day and like who your actual like brand
Man,
loyalists are is incredibly important. I think like LTKCon, for example, is always like nuts every year. Like when you see how much stuff these influencers are going home with. And you see everybody in the comments saying, like, oh my God, I would kill for this. Like, why? Like, I wish I had the opportunity to do something like this. So, really creating that opportunity, right? Like, carve out a portion of the event for those brand loyalists and those brand advocates who are going to be generating more money for you and customer lifetime value than an influencer is on a one-off, engagement.
there's so many things to unpack there. I feel like celebrities do that, like the music celebrities, right? They're creating those super fan kits. It's not just that they're hiring other influencers, they're going to their fan base, but also with AI, right? Like people need real moments together. And I agree with you, but the fans, kind of creating that moment where, yes, the influencers can get something from your brand, but extending it to those loyal fans yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I love getting all your information and insights and everything. It's been great and hope that you have a wonderful 2026. And I always end with the same question. If you could name an influencer that you love to follow, but hate to admit that you do, fill it in the blank.
I don't really follow any controversial influencers. I like to say I follow whatever the algorithm decides that my personality is that week. And just with algorithms the way that they are, I rarely see content from people I follow anyway. So, when I'm in the discovery phase or like just wanting to see what's coming, like feeling very niche to me, obviously I go on TikTok. When I'm looking for something more like predictable or like expected, I go on Instagram. So I think the behavior on platforms obviously factors into that, but I really thought about this question. I could not come up with anybody that I think anyone would find controversial.
That's awesome. But thank you.
Of course.
Well, again, where could everyone find you if anyone's looking for you?
I'm on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram. I'm out there.
Okay, awesome. So it's Chelsea McDonald. Thank you so much, Chelsea.
Thank you, Sherry.